Digital Marketing Radio, episode 243, The Future of Events, Post-COVID.
Digital Marketing Radio with David Bain.
Hi, I'm David Bain, and this is Digital Marketing Radio, the show for in-house agency and entrepreneurial marketers who want to stay on top of the latest tools, tactics and trends shared by today's modern marketing masters. How is the event industry going to change post-COVID? As a marketer, should you plan to get back into the events game soon? Or are we more likely to see hybrid events in the future, a combination between virtual and physical events? And if so, what does that mean for marketers? Those are just some of the questions that I'm going to be asking my guest today on Digital Marketing Radio, episode 243. She is a lady who's as passionate about storytelling as she is about marketing and sales. And those two masterminds speak her language. She specializes in developing virtual, hybrid and physical events, including event marketing strategy that incorporates social media, brand planning, campaign planning and performance tracking. She's the director of event marketing at Informa. Welcome to DMR, Kathryn Frankson.
Thanks, David. Great to be here.
Yeah, great to have you on the show, Kathryn, where you can find Kathryn, what she does over at Informa.com. So, Kathryn, how has the traditional events industry coped over the past year?
Well, when your entire industry shuts down, you have to change absolutely everything. So a lot of the coping, it's been interesting. So, initially when COVID happened, events were pushed back. No one knew the timeline. So you were sort of dealing with, how do we adjust for the physical event? Then altogether, events canceled. So the shift became to virtual very, very quickly. Some more quickly than others, but that was the direction. That's what allowed there to be a point of everyone moving forward. And what's interesting about that is, so you had a year where virtual events scaled and our audiences had a chance to participate in such a variety of virtual events, but also realize if they actually missed the physical version of your event or not, because they were able to go a year without it. So the adjustments for virtual was really where everyone lived. Initially, it was a lot of translating your actual event, what you did in a live format, into virtual. We all quickly realized that was probably too much content, too much programming. You're not on site. You're not immersed in an event. Audiences are at home in this new world of distraction. And when you only have your laptop in front of you and they can look at a phone or have 4 other browsers open, you really quickly have to step into, our job is also to be more entertaining, to create better engagement, to find ways to incorporate our partners in a different way. So it all started in that virtual framework, and then the iterations came from there as we learned.
So are we going to see full-scale events return as we knew them pre-COVID fairly soon?
They will return. My hope is that they aren't exactly how we built them before. I think in my opinion, the big upside in the event landscape from COVID is that everyone had, although very painful and, your loss of revenue and loss of these experiences that, you loved producing and audience loved, but it really, everyone has to reinvent. So physical events will come back. We're seeing events. We've had a few trade already. It depends on what vertical you're in, what region your event would take place in, and then also really the brand health. Is there a compelling reason to hold your event? But there's been a few, but we're certainly planning for the fourth quarter and certainly for 2022. But everyone is taking a look at your events, even if it was what you consider a traditional, on the B2B side of things, conference and trade show. You have to look at, how do we change our value prop? Because the same problems that you're solving for your audiences might not be there, and the same competitive advantage that you had for your event might not be there. If they've realized, oh, okay, well, I can get a level of the education that I was receiving online, then you have to think about, what are you offering for more immersive experiences for networking, education that isn't just speakers talking to audiences. Maybe they can create something together. So because that feeds into the marketing side, you have to find a new story to tell, because it's harder to get, audiences to book travel, justify the budget. Everyone's in these new patterns of working and living. So it starts with defining what that new product is, and then you start to work backwards from there with your messaging.
So you alluded to the fact that virtual events need to be shorter than conventional in-person events because people have so many different distractions. So is there an ideal length for virtual events, and what kind of format tends to work better for a virtual event?
They're getting shorter and shorter. So initially we thought we're like, we're moving to 45-minute sessions or 30 sessions, but it can depend. So we still have some events that we run, virtual events that are, sessions that are an hour, they're half-day events, some are even full day. And then you have others where they're these short snippets. It's 45-minute increments of content, but it's all around how you program it. So if you are going to do something that's a half day, think about it in blocks of time. Okay, because we have some events where you've got continuing education credits attached to it, and there is a little bit more of a format within that. But then we think, how do we open it in an attention-getting way? How do we give the right amount of breaks? How do we build in some entertainment into that, so it just doesn't feel exhaustive and just very, static in terms of how you're consuming it. But some are 30 minutes and up. So it can be a pretty big range.
So can you realistically then deliver a hybrid event that works for both online and in-person attendees at the same time?
I think so. That's the new frontier of what's being developed is, and it's interesting both from a product, event, design, engineering standpoint, and then also how you choose to market it, because you do have to build those two experiences. And there's a lot of talk now of, don't just stream content. That's not truly hybrid. And I do think everyone should be freed up to design for their specific audience. That should be one of the big takeaways, is that for events to still be relevant, those who are closest to their audiences and are able to iterate more than we were before. You kind of had your event format and it worked, and you sort of picked that up each year. But yeah, for hybrid, you're designing you've got your physical in-person experience, and then you've got this digital component, which does feel very exciting because, depending on the size and scale of your event, I mean, ultimately, even if you're a large event, that's a small portion of your total audience of your database that's probably coming to your event annually. And so it does create more opportunity. But then the question is, what's that digital experience? I think everyone kind of understands we've been to events, we know the physical experience. So it's trying to find up those points where the audiences can join up. And then from the marketing standpoint, you have to back up and say, how do we path everyone and make each of these options really clear? And what from our data sets are we using? So we know we're going to message our past alumni potentially differently than international audiences. So it's interesting to think about almost having two audience sets for both your event and your campaigns themselves.
So you touched on letting the audiences link up. Is that in the form of just social media, or would you actually try and bring in the virtual audience to maybe some kind of discussion panel so they're actually actively involved with the same audience at the physical event?
So both, but ideally you would have a platform that would allow your audience virtually to interact with your audience on site, because that's also where it gets a bit more exciting, where it doesn't feel like it's as separate for both of your event audiences.
Okay, got you. Okay, so a platform, so some kind of maybe proprietary software that the event is being broadcast live on, that the virtual audience is obviously on, but I guess giving the live audience access to the same platform at the same time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, and it's interesting. See, there's a couple of different formats in play. You have some where event designers are actually you've got your physical in-person audience, you've got a stage set. Think of a keynote. You might even have a screen, an LED screen, where you're actually bringing in your audience virtually. Maybe you're doing a subset of VIPs. They're coming in. So you're actually getting a little bit of FaceTime there. And then on that platform or on your mobile app experience, you can also do chat, you can do polling, you can kind of let those two audiences, talk about what they're seeing and experiencing and communicate about that in real time.
Are there some elements of an in-person experience that you just shouldn't attempt to replicate in a virtual form? I'm thinking things like after-event drinks that perhaps work best on a face-to-face basis.
Yes, I don't think anyone is eager to zoom into the hotel bar necessarily. But yeah, I think you do have to pick and choose, because you also want to be cognizant of why someone's joining virtually, a different experience that someone is going to get when they're more immersed on site, and plan for that. Because you do have to be realistic, both about what you can actually deliver, what the tech is going to allow you to do, and what's going to feel most organic for your audience. And if those networking components feel like they should be a little bit separate, and you're doing something specifically for a round table or something in the virtual space for that audience that just is going to feel a little bit more organic, maybe it is a little bit shorter, your programming is a little bit more condensed, then you want to be able to make those decisions.
So what does this mean for exhibitors? Because part of traditional events is you have an opportunity to sell space to exhibitors, and attendees have an opportunity to attend these halls. Is that something that can be replicated online as well, or do you have to actually offer something entirely different to exhibitors online? Is there a different kind of business proposition that works better online?
I think there is a different proposition that works better online. That was one of the areas that we've all been solving for, and I would say is still a work in progress. Education piece, we've figured that out. Engagement, how do we get audiences to feel really connected and connect a little bit before and after? We're getting a lot better at that. And translating an exhibitor experience, when we initially did that early on, it was a little flat in many ways. I mean, it was sort of a web page where audiences could go in, and then sometimes a video would auto generate, and that also wasn't always the best experience overall. We got a little bit better at it, because some of it was coaching exhibitors on the experiences, finding ways for them to not have to sit in these virtual booths all day, so that they were only coming during high traffic times, and also coaching them around the idea of an attendee just coming in and being pitched is not really where they want to be met. But I do think what we found that works best virtually is as much as you can bring your partners in at a sponsorship level and design something that's a little bit more embedded into the event itself, they see much better results. So especially if you're doing a virtual event series, which can be a great way to offer up more sponsorship opportunities, but also more custom content for your audience, it can be great to have them involve, Q&A with the keynote. They're actually, presenting content themselves. Maybe they're doing a demo, but the more that you can bring them in, a little less church and state, virtually, we found that works really well.
So in essence, that means more sponsored speaking opportunities.
It
so
can.
that the brand, yeah.
Yeah, it can. And that's where if you have the opportunity to do a pre or post, a virtual lead up series where it's AMAs, or it's an ongoing, presenting content, probably, to your different ideal customer profiles or personas. It can be a much more organic way to bring sponsors in. And it performs really well, especially if you align them with the right speakers. I think traditionally we've thought of sponsors, we'll give them their logo coverage. They're sort of underwriting the event, but we don't want to, we want to make it clear that this is where the sponsors live, and this is where our pure content, our speakers, our keynotes. And I think we've also seen a lot more joining up with sponsors and partners that we don't have to keep them so separate. If they've got a really strong point of view and we can really put them into the content programming, it can be valuable for them, but also for audiences. Because we did get that as a point of feedback, actually. We had this exhibitor experience, which was still developing, and they were saying, we want a little more engagement, we want more leads. But then inversely, we had audiences saying, we want to know what the new products are in our space. We want to find more tech. It's great to get this education and to get these insights, but we also kind of want to know what's new and different. And so that was also one of the prompts to say, oh, well, maybe we can rethink this.
So what does this hybrid format mean for the skills that you're looking for in a speaker? Is there a different skill set required? And is the structure of a presentation that you're looking from a speaker slightly different because it has to work well virtually as well as in person?
Yes, you're going well. And I think speakers have come a long way on the tech side. Many of them have been doing virtual event speaking this year, but the onus also falls on, if you have someone who's really talented, they're bright, they've got a specialty. We do events in a host of different markets. And so some are less on the professional speaking circuit per se, but they're incredible subject matter experts. So I also think a big portion of it falls on show organizers and event planners and producers to help prepare them. So if you say you're going to have your keynote or a subset of your speakers, you say, yep, this is the format. We want to make sure you're polished. We want to do tech checks. This is how this is going to work, comfort level, especially with your MC, but other speakers, it's a new format to everyone. So a lot of it's also just going to be like taking the time to walk through everything really clearly and making sure that you're giving your speakers the chance to feel comfortable, to understand how the format is going to work.
So you touched upon leads as a measurement of success for sponsors and exhibitors. What are maybe one or two ways that you would advise sponsors to actually try to maximize the number of leads that are generated? Are there different offers or incentives or competitions that tend to be more effective?
We did a lot of coaching in this area for our partners. So we found that, anytime they can offer up content that our audience is really interested in, it performed really well, because you have to think of it as a value exchange. And that was part of that conversation is, of course, we get that you want someone to come in and you want to, introduce yourself and position your product. But if you can be the thought leader, you've got your product, but if they can sort of zoom up a level and say, yes, we produce X, this is the service that we offer, but we're a thought leader in this space. Here's our, pricing guide. Here's our white paper. We offer free consulting if they're bringing in a speaker of their own. We have seen, some of the prize stuff works too if they're offering, we've had some offer AirPods and some gifts, but I think if you can find a little bit more of it's a good incentive and it works and it can be a fun, conversation starter. But anyone that's bringing a little bit of their own content to the table and kind of putting in that legwork, they found that it started more conversations and turned into more valuable leads for them.
So are you talking about content in exchange for opting in for the lead, or free content at the event with a view to actually them engaging with the brand and then coming towards you naturally by themselves? Yeah,
free content. So okay. We're going to be partnering at this event, and here's what we have to offer you. Here's what we have to say. It's not just coming from the place of, we want to show you our wares, we want to show you our products. It's, here's the reason to visit. In the scenario of having a virtual booth, it's, here's the reason to come to our booth. And then that means they're doing a little bit of their own marketing, and we can partner with them on that, but it just gives our audiences a reason to make that opt-in a little bit easier, because then they're interested in what they can get, they're interested in what they can talk about, they're interested in what that partner is actually going to share.
Yeah, brilliant stuff. All about the value exchange, just making the consumer feel that they're actually, it's an equal relationship and they're not just giving away their details. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Wonderful stuff. Okay, well, let's segue to part 2 of our discussion. It's now time for Kathryn's thoughts on the state of digital marketing today. So starting off with
secret software.
So Kathryn, share a lesser known MarTech tool that's bringing you a lot of value at the moment and why that tool is important for you.
One of my favorite tools now, and speaking of content, is Turtle. So we, turtl.co. We switched over about a year ago, all of our content from PDFs into these interactive, well-designed thought leadership pieces. What's very cool about it is that, one, you can create these actual interactive templates for your, if you've, a bigger sales and marketing team, give them these different versions. They just fill out a form for their client. It auto-populates everything. So they're able to send out custom sponsorship packages at scale. On the marketing side as well, you can actually see where your audience is spending their time. So you can see which chapters and which page and how much they're sharing, and you can do direct to social embed links on there, and it tracks all of that, which is actually really interesting, because then we can look at that and go, oh, we did this whole white paper. This subject was the most important, and then let's turn that into its own piece. And if you're using content as lead gen, what I also like about it is you can put your gate anywhere in the piece. So instead of that just having to live on your landing page and write a little blurb and they have to fill out the form, they can actually kind of go into this piece, realize that it's actually valuable. What, videos are embedded, pull quotes come out, and then if you do want to gate it, you can just bury that a little bit deeper, so they're more enticed to fill that out.
I like that because I think there are too many pieces of content now that ask for the lead too quickly before the consumers had the opportunity to just decide
find out if it's good or not.
For them. Yeah, exactly. Absolutely. Okay, well, so that's turtle.co. They describe themselves as enterprise content automation. But moving on from something that you currently use to something that you're going to use, that is
next on the list.
So what's one marketing activity or tool that you haven't tried yet, but you want to test soon?
Okay, I've two. So we do a lot of sales enablement, lead meeting generation for our sales team, tracking everything to revenue. So that's one of our big areas of focus. And I think as marketers, we've figured out how to generate leads, and we know there's sort of the sales marketing lead battle, but Gong is a tool that is in my sites, which is revenue optimization. You can listen to it, sort of tracks, sales calls, messaging, so that you're getting those insights back. Like, what are customers saying? What's the feedback? Because currently the visibility that we have is, as you look at your pipeline analytics in Salesforce, or you talk to your sales teams, and it can feel more anecdotal than just rooted in data. And especially for them too, if you have a large Salesforce, then you can run this across all of your teams. So that's the first one. And the other would be a tool that I've been following is called Sales Whale. And that's actually for, it's an AI enablement tool that helps any of your leads that are just sitting there mid-funnel, and it actually works them so your sales teams don't have to. So it feels like that it becomes a big revenue opportunity lift, because we put so much focus on, we'll generate great content, or we'll run really interesting events. We want to create leads that create new opportunities. And then it feels like it sort of goes into the abyss, and sales teams understandably are going to work key accounts and ICPs. And so I think just using those two tools and really seeing that if we harness the full potential of everything that we're putting across the fence and seeing what that revenue output would be, I think that would be really exciting.
Great. Tanya Fuchs on Facebook or on LinkedIn, is saying, ooh, did a quick Google. Turtle looks interesting. It certainly does indeed. Turtle.co. All of the recommendations sound interesting. So that's gong.io. Saleswell.com as well. Mm-hmm. Saleswell stop marketing leads from slipping through the cracks. Certainly with B2B, leads slipping through the cracks can be very costly indeed, and anything that will stop that is absolutely superb. Okay, well, let us move on to
The this or that round.
So this is the quick response round. 10 quick questions, just 2 rows here. Try not to think about the answer too much, and you're only allowed to say the word both on one occasion, so use it wisely.
Okay.
Are you ready?
I am ready.
TikTok or Twitter?
Twitter,
Facebook or LinkedIn?
LinkedIn,
YouTube or podcast?
podcast.
Traffic or leads?
Ooh, both.
Paid search or SEO?
Paid search,
Ads or influencers?
ads,
Google ads or Facebook ads?
Facebook ads,
Email marketing or chat marketing?
email marketing.
MarTech stack or all-in-one platform?
Ooh, MarTech stack.
One-to-one or scale?
Oh, I wish I hadn't used my both. One-to-one.
I was going to say that you used your both relatively early. Traffic or leads, you picked both for that. Why was that? Why were both important?
Ultimately for us, you want everything. You use your revenue as your North Star, but you have to work backwards from that. And I think too, when we've been actually doing a lot of analysis of the good old marketing funnel, and it does feel like you need both. You need to make sure that you're driving the right sources and volume of traffic and targeting in the right ways so that you generate the volume of leads that you do want.
Yeah, it's a challenge just to focus on the one thing and certainly multiple things. Different metrics are important in business. Let's move on to
The $10,000 question.
if I was to give you $10,000 and you had to spend it over the next few days on a single thing to grow your business, what would you spend it on and how would you measure success?
Ooh, this is so exciting. This is like a dream. Like, just give me a big wad of money. I would, so we've got a lot of content from our conferences, virtual conferences that we produce. I would hire a great video editor to do some really strong video ad content. And I would run a series of paid ad campaigns across LinkedIn and Facebook so that I could actually do a test within both platforms. Within the budgeting for events, you tend to not do, heavy, high scale investments across a multitude of platforms. We've sort of had to pick and choose. So I'd be really interested to see if we had a great video reel, a couple of different edits of it that we could do for an initial ad treatment, a retargeting follow-up, if it felt like the creative was exactly right and compelling, and we put some real dollars behind it, would we see higher conversions for an upcoming event that we're marketing? So,
And if you were doing video ads and you were targeting a new audience, an audience that hadn't actually engaged with you before, would you try to drive them towards a call to action immediately, or would you warm them up by getting them to watch the video and then perhaps retargeting them with a firmer call to action if they watch all of the initial video?
Yes, I would do a first campaign where it's warming them up with the video, enticing copy, knowing that they're going to watch it hopefully in feed, maybe do a little bit of their own research, and then through a retargeting campaign, second message, leaning a little bit more into less just the excitement of the event and more what's that, what's the value that it's offering. I think the conversion points with virtual become a little bit easier. So I think you can make that right hook a little bit sooner. I would still do it on the second touch with, in real life events that I think it takes a little bit more communication, but I think it'd be very interesting to see, okay, we nailed the video. Second call to action is really specific, really, really pithy, great offer. We've leveraged, a big attention getting keynote that we've used before. So I would structure it as a follow-up campaign.
Great. It's funny when you say someone gives me a big wad of money, and I was trying to think of a figure, $10,000 I picked. That would be useful for enterprises, but also small businesses at the same time? Because obviously $10,000 isn't necessarily a lot of money to a massive enterprise. But
No.
I guess if you're strategic about it and you had to demonstrate results from it, it's still a reasonable amount of money.
Yes, in my mind, I'm like, okay, if we have to spend it in 2 days and show a return, put an added fun $10,000 in the budget. But yeah, it'd be a fun one to play with.
Well, to finish off, let's focus on someone else who deserves it. So that is a
Magical marketer.
So who's an up-and-coming marketer that you'd like to give a shout-out to? What can we learn from them, and where can we find them?
All right, my magical marketer is a woman named Deborah Carver, and she is incredibly bright. She started her own company called the Content Technologist. So it's content-technologist.com. Her background is she was a journalist, then moved into SEO and paid. And by going into all the different specific areas of marketing, she realized the role of technology and your tech stack in terms of how it actually influences your audiences and your data capture. And she's just a really bright mind and futurist. And I think it's great that she started her own company and it's focused on actually having real conversations with people in the industry about what technology you're using. She's agnostic. So she can actually say, is it working or not? And then make the real recommendations that turn into campaigns that I think deliver probably, more significant results. But yeah, she's fantastic.
Great. She signs it as well. And I love this question because you get to meet different magical marketers that perhaps people haven't actually heard of beforehand. And of course, you were recommended as a magical marketer in a previous episode as well.
It's so great.
So here we go. This was episode 243 of Digital Marketing Radio, where Kathryn Frankson from Informa shared some great tips about how online events generally have to be a little bit shorter and more succinct. Don't do your lengthy presentations online to keep people engaged, because people have 4 screens open at the same time. Also, when you're exhibiting or sponsoring, offer value and content before you generate leads as well. Try and engage with that person before you ask them to marry you. Shared as secret software was turtle.co, enterprise content automation software. Next on the list was gong.io and saleswell.com. And your magical marketer, Kathryn, was Deborah Carver, content-technologies.com. Everything Kathryn mentioned there will be in the show notes at digitalmarketingradio.com, and of course in the description on the YouTube channel after we've finished broadcasting live. Just go to youtube.com/digitalmarketingradio. Kathryn, what's the best social platform for someone to follow you and to say hi?
Find me on LinkedIn at Kathryn Frankson.
Superb. Okay, well, thanks so much for coming on. I have been your host, David Bain. You can also find me producing podcasts for B2B brands over at castingcred.com. Please remember, wherever you're tuning in, feedback is fantabulous. Until we meet again, stay hungry, stay foolish, and stay subscribed. Aloha.
DigitalMarketingRadio.com. DigitalMarketingRadio.com. Digital Marketing Radio. Digital Marketing Radio. DigitalMarketingRadio.com.